Will the relation back doctrine of CPLR 203C allow a new party to be added even after the statute of limitations just because of a law office oversight? To find out, you have to read Nemeth versus K. Tooling, but it's 13 pages. Don't have time for that? I've got you covered. This is TLDR, Too Long Didn't Read, where I cover New York Court of Appeals cases, and I try to do it in 5 minutes or less. This is the episode on the case of matter of Nemeth versus K. Tooling. The citation for this case is 2023 New York Slip Opinion 05349, published by the New York Court of Appeals on October 24th of 2023. The issue in this case is the application of the relation back doctrine to a mere oversight, and I'll explain all that in a moment, and whether that's okay. To understand and appreciate the context of this case, there's a couple things that I'll explain and then bring it all together. First, an Article 78 proceeding. An Article 78 proceeding is a claim that an aspect of government, a board, a judge, some part of government has violated the rules, exceeded their authority. That's what an Article 78 is. The next thing you have to know is that there's something called the statute of limitations. The statute of limitations is a rule that there's only a certain amount of time between when a cause of action accrues, when it becomes ripe to file, and when you actually file it. If a cause of action accrues and you file it after the statute of limitation ends, then you're subject to a motion to dismiss as exceeding the statute of limitations. The claim is that you're filing it untimely, and it can be dismissed on that basis. And the statute of limitations varies depending on what kind of claim it is. So intentional tort, it's 1 year. For a fraud, it's 6 years. For breach of contract, it's different for different kinds of cause of action. For an Article 78 proceeding, like we just talked about, the cause of action must be within 4 months of when it's filed. The statute of limitations is 4 months. So you have to file it against the right parties within 4 months. Now, what happens if you file it and you have to add people afterwards? Well, that's when the relation back doctrine comes in, and that's under CPLR 203C. And that says that you can add a party even after the statute of limitations is over if certain conditions are met, certain elements are met. Those elements are, number one, the claims arise out of the same conduct, transaction, or occurrence as the cause of action, as the claim that you filed that was timely. So you can add someone untimely if the claims were filed timely against the people that you did file against. The second element is that the new party that you're adding is united in interest with the original defendant that was filed properly, and thus can be charged with having notice of the original filing, and is not therefore prejudiced by this lack of notice. And number three is the new party knew or should have known that but for the omission, they would have been named initial pleading. So it's a very strict, stringent set of elements under 203C. But there's two exceptions to this exception. But these will not be allowed. You cannot file it untimely using the relation back doctrine if either of these two things are present. First, if the plaintiff intentionally decided not to file against this new party originally, if it was intentional, or if it was done late for tactical reasons. The court doesn't like it if you wait and then you file it late to gain a tactical advantage. And that's the relation back doctrine. So what are the facts here? The facts are, it's a little complicated, the facts, but basically there's two neighbors that are fighting. The neighbors are two sets of property owners that live in a residential neighborhood. And the Nemeths are one set, Donna and Joseph Nemeth, and they live next to the Kuhns. And the Kuhns are running a business out of their property, their residential property. And the business they're running is called K. Tooling and Kuhn Manufacturing. And they have a non-conforming use permission from the zoning board. Okay. And the Nemeths don't like that the Kuhns are operating this business out of this next door neighbor property. So in 2012, the Nemeths sue the Kuhns, seeking an injunction against them operating this business in their property. So the Kuhns go to the zoning board and seek a variance, which they get. The Nemeths then start an Article 78 proceeding saying that the Kuhns, that the zoning board shouldn't have allowed it. The Supreme Court dismissed the petition, the appellate division reversed. That's background. In 2016, the Kuhns sought another variance and the zoning board granted it. The Nemeths filed another Article 78. Okay? but they only name the organizations. They name K Tooling and they name Kuhn Manufacturing. They don't name the property owners, Rosa and Perry Kuhn, but they're necessary parties. So when they don't name them, the Kuhn organizations move to dismiss, saying you failed to name a necessary party. So the Supreme Court granted the motion to dismiss. The appellate division reverses it and sends it back and says, join the necessary parties. So when the Nemeth try to then file an amended Article 78, which has the proper parties, Rosa and Perry Kuhn, the respondents, the Nemeth, move to dismiss and say, you violated the statute of limitations. You lose. Motion to dismiss. You filed it against us too late. The Supreme Court grants the motion to dismiss and dismisses the petition as untimely. It goes to the appellate division, and the appellate division affirms what the Supreme Court does. They say the relation back doctrine does not apply. That doctrine I talked about with the three elements does not apply because this was not a mistake of law. They knew they existed. In fact, there was previous litigation involving them. And then they appealed to the Court of Appeals. So here's what we have. We now have an argument here between the Nemeth and the Kuhns in front of the Court of Appeals. The Kuhns say the relation back doctrine should only be allowed to apply here when the omission, the failure, relates from doubts about the identity of the party. It should be a true error where they didn't know this party existed, not a mere omission, not just an error like a law office failure. And the Nemeth say, no, it should include a law office failure. Obviously, we knew they existed. We filed previous applications against them. It goes to the Court of Appeals, and here the holding is. This is what they say. We now hold that the relation back doctrine is not limited. It is not limited to cases where the amending party's omission results from doubts regarding the party's identity or status. So they're saying that the relation back doctrine is not so small that it only applies when you don't know who the party actually is, that it extends to mere law office failures. So the court makes clear that the relation back doctrine applies when the party knew or should have known that but for the mistake, whether simple oversight or mistake of law, the non-amending party would have been named initially. So here they go through the elements. Number one, do the claims arise out of the same transaction that was filed timely? Yes. It's the same exact case that they were previously litigating in front of the zoning board. Number two, is the party united in interest? Yes, it is. In fact, it's the same lawyer that K Tooling and Kuhn Manufacturing is using as Rosa and Perry Kuhn were using. Same exact lawyer. So they were on notice. And number three, did the new party know or should have known that but for the omission, they would have been named? And yes, here they knew and they just didn't help, and they don't have to help. But basically, the Court of Appeals says it does apply in this situation. The relation back doctrine will allow the amended pleading to add these people that are technically outside the statute of limitations, but because the three elements of relation back of 203C apply, they can be added even though it's untimely. And that's the case of Nemeth versus K Tooling. Have a good day. If you like what you just saw and want to see more just like it, please hit like or subscribe to let me know.